Mark McCormack begins What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School with the premise that business is fundamentally about people. Success isn't just about strategies, numbers, or products, it's about how well you can understand, interact with, and influence others. In this section, McCormack provides actionable insights on reading people, creating impressions, and getting ahead by leveraging interpersonal skills. These lessons are grounded in real-world examples, showing how nuanced interactions can determine the outcomes of business relationships. McCormack opens by emphasizing the importance of reading people. He recounts a personal story from the 1963 World Cup golf tournament in Paris, where he met Richard Nixon twice in casual, unrelated settings. On both occasions, Nixon said the exact same 5 or 6 sentences to McCormack and his companions, as if he were repeating rehearsed lines. McCormack notes that this lack of authenticity revealed something deeper about Nixon's personality, a certain phoniness. Years later, when Nixon's presidency unraveled during the Watergate scandal, McCormack reflected on these earlier interactions. He concluded that Nixon's downfall wasn't just about political missteps but also about his inability to connect with people genuinely. This small anecdote highlights McCormack's central point. Observing people's behavior in seemingly minor situations can reveal a great deal about their character. Contrast this with another story involving Doug Sanders, a flamboyant professional golfer known for his colorful personality and high-risk lifestyle. Sanders once played an exhibition match in Canada and was paid in cash. He could have easily kept the money, as McCormack's firm was unaware of the event. Instead, Sanders mailed the commission in cash without even a note attached. This small act of honesty left a lasting impression on McCormack, who trusted Sanders far more than some of his critics who had warned McCormack against working with him. The takeaway is clear. Actions, no matter how small, often speak louder than words, and they are critical in shaping business relationships. Reading people effectively requires opening yourself up to the signals they unconsciously emit. McCormack emphasizes the importance of listening aggressively not just to what people say but how they say it. He advises paying attention to tone, pauses, and even body language. For example, during a sales pitch to Burger King, Pepsi executives initially focused on promoting consumer choice, believing this was Burger King's priority. However, Burger King had no interest in offering multiple cola options. It valued its streamlined menu philosophy. For months, Pepsi executives failed to hear what Burger King was truly saying. When they finally listened and reframed their pitch, positioning Pepsi as the underdog that shared Burger King's ethos of taking on industry leaders, the deal was closed. This example illustrates how listening, truly hearing, and understanding the other party can make or break a business opportunity. Observation is another critical component of reading people. McCormack explains that most people reveal their true selves through subtle cues. For example, he prefers face-to-face meetings because they allow him to assess more than just what a person says. Their posture, eye contact, and even their reactions to small challenges provide valuable insights. In one meeting, McCormack noticed that a potential business partner initially refused to order food, claiming to be on a strict diet. However, when McCormack gently encouraged him to have something, the man quickly changed his mind and ordered the same meal. This small interaction told McCormack that the individual was easily influenced, a useful piece of information for future negotiations. Another valuable skill McCormack highlights is the ability to manage egos. Ego, he says, is often the most significant factor in business interactions. He categorizes egos as either strong or weak, noting that a person's ego strength often dictates how they behave in negotiations or leadership roles. A story that exemplifies this is McCormack's interaction with a Fortune 500 chairman who berated his wife during a friendly tennis match, blaming her for every lost point. This behavior revealed an inability to take responsibility, a trait McCormack knew would carry over into his business dealings. On the other hand, strong egos, those rooted in confidence rather than insecurity, often lead to more decisive and reliable behavior. Once you've learned to read people, the next step is to create the right impression. McCormack stresses that first impressions are powerful, but they don't have to be overwhelming or dramatic. Instead, they are built through small, consistent actions that convey competence, reliability, and self-awareness. For example, McCormack makes it a habit to always introduce himself, even to people he has met before, to avoid any potential awkwardness. This simple act ensures that he is perceived as approachable and professional. Similarly, he shares a story about Ray Cave, managing editor of Time magazine, who once greeted a maitre d' with, "Good to see you again," even though it was his first time at the restaurant. This subtle gesture created an instant sense of familiarity and rapport, setting a positive tone for the interaction. Playing off expectations is another technique McCormack uses to create impressions. When meeting with a high-profile television personality he wanted to represent, McCormack deliberately avoided pressuring her into signing with his firm. Instead, he focused on discussing her career and offering insights into how she could maximize her opportunities. This approach intrigued the personality, as she had expected an aggressive pitch. By subverting her expectations, McCormack shifted the dynamic, leading her to pursue him instead. Cultural nuances also play a significant role in creating impressions. McCormack shares a story about Atsushi Fujita, a Japanese sports promoter, who used cultural norms to his advantage during a negotiation over television rights. When a Japanese network bypassed Fujita and made an offer directly to McCormack's client, Fujita brought his young daughter to the network chairman's house and pleaded that losing the deal would cause him to lose face in America. This emotional appeal, rooted in Japanese cultural values, successfully salvaged the deal. The lesson here is that understanding and respecting cultural differences can be a powerful tool in business. Written communication is another area where impressions are formed. McCormack is meticulous about his letters, insisting on perfect grammar, personalization, and a polished presentation. He recounts how he personalizes even routine business letters by referencing the recipient's interests or recent successes. For example, he might include a line about a sports team the recipient supports or a recent accomplishment. These small touches make the recipient feel valued and respected, strengthening the relationship. Finally, McCormack discusses the importance of respecting other people's time. Wasting someone's time, he argues, is one of the quickest ways to create a negative impression. He recalls an instance where a phone call from Vice President Spiro Agnew interrupted a meeting he was having with another executive. While the call had no relevance to the meeting, its unexpected nature elevated McCormack's credibility in the eyes of his guest. The story underscores McCormack's point that even interruptions, if handled well, can be turned into opportunities to create a positive impression. Throughout this section, McCormack weaves together practical advice with compelling anecdotes to illustrate his points. He makes it clear that business success hinges not on grand gestures but on mastering the art of human interaction. By learning to read people, creating favorable impressions, and managing egos, you can build the relationships and trust necessary for long-term success. These skills, McCormack argues, are not taught in classrooms, but are essential for navigating the complexities of the real business world. In the second part of his book, Mark McCormack explores the intricacies of sales and negotiation, two areas where intuition and adaptability often outweigh technical skills. McCormack emphasizes that both processes revolve around people, not just products or services. Success in these areas is less about hard selling and more about timing, strategy, silence, and the ability to connect with the person across the table. McCormack begins with a key insight. Most people don't like being sold to. This simple observation reframes the entire concept of selling. Instead of forcing a product or service onto someone, the focus should be on understanding their needs and helping them come to the decision themselves. McCormack recounts an example involving Pepsi's long-standing efforts to partner with Burger King. For years, Pepsi pitched their product as part of a choice-based menu, believing that offering Pepsi alongside Coca-Cola would align with Burger King's philosophy of giving customers what they want. However, Burger King's actual approach emphasized simplicity, not variety. Their one cola rule reflected their belief in a streamlined menu. Pepsi only succeeded when they finally reframed their pitch. Instead of focusing on choice, they emphasized a shared underdog narrative, Pepsi as the number 2 brand, working alongside Burger King, the challenger to McDonald's dominance. This shift in strategy, rooted in understanding Burger King's identity, closed the deal. The lesson here is that successful selling often requires understanding the other party's perspective and tailoring your approach to fit their worldview. Timing is another essential element of successful sales. McCormack explains that pushing for a deal too soon can backfire, as can waiting too long. He shares the story of how he spent years cultivating a relationship with Chris Evert, one of the world's most famous tennis players. When McCormack first approached her about representation in 1975, Evert declined, preferring to stay independent. Instead of giving up or pushing harder, McCormack remained patient, maintaining a friendly and professional relationship over the next 5 years. When the timing was finally right, when Evert felt ready for professional representation, she signed with IMG. McCormack's approach demonstrates the value of persistence, but only when it's coupled with respect for the other party's readiness. Sometimes, the key to closing a deal is knowing when to wait. Silence, McCormack argues, is one of the most underutilized tools in sales and negotiation. He explains that people are often uncomfortable with silence, particularly in high-stakes conversations. This discomfort leads them to fill the gap with additional information, often revealing more than they intended. McCormack recalls a negotiation where he presented a proposal and then stopped talking, waiting for the other side to respond. The silence grew awkward, prompting the other party to speak up and disclose critical details that strengthened McCormack's position. The lesson here is clear. Silence isn't passive, it's strategic. By resisting the urge to fill every pause, you can maintain control of the conversation and gain valuable insights. Another critical aspect of sales and negotiation is marketability, not just of the product or service, but of yourself. McCormack believes that personal brand plays a significant role in influencing others. He shares how, early in his career, he helped Arnold Palmer become a marketable figure not just as a golfer but as a relatable personality. Palmer's charisma and accessibility made him appealing to companies looking for brand ambassadors, allowing McCormack to secure lucrative endorsement deals for him. Similarly, McCormack himself cultivated a reputation as a trustworthy and effective negotiator, which made others more willing to work with him. Marketability, McCormack argues, is about creating a perception of value, whether it's for yourself, your product, or your company. McCormack delves deeper into negotiation, describing it as both an art and a science. He emphasizes that successful negotiations are rarely about winning at the expense of the other party. Instead, they should aim for mutually beneficial outcomes. He shares a compelling story about negotiating with a Japanese television network over broadcasting rights. When the network tried to bypass McCormack's client, Atsushi Fujita, and deal directly with the rights holder, Fujita took an unconventional approach. He brought his young daughter to the chairman of the network and explained how losing the deal would cause him to lose face in America. The appeal to cultural values and honor resonated with the chairman, who ultimately withdrew the direct offer and returned to negotiating through Fujita. This example underscores the importance of understanding cultural and personal dynamics in negotiations. What works in one context might not work in another, and flexibility is key. Flexibility extends to tactics as well. McCormack describes how he sometimes starts negotiations by making small, non-essential concessions. This strategy helps build goodwill and makes the other party more willing to compromise on larger issues later. For example, in one negotiation, McCormack agreed to a minor demand early on, signaling his willingness to collaborate. This small gesture encouraged the other side to reciprocate when more significant points were on the table. McCormack likens this to giving a little to get a lot, an approach that fosters trust and cooperation rather than conflict. Tailoring your approach to the individual you're negotiating with is another cornerstone of McCormack's strategy. He recalls a meeting with an impatient executive who was known for his short temper. Instead of trying to match the executive's intensity, McCormack maintained a calm and steady demeanor. Over time, the executive's impatience worked in McCormack's favor, as the executive grew frustrated and agreed to terms simply to move the conversation forward. This anecdote highlights the importance of knowing your counterpart's personality and adjusting your approach accordingly. McCormack also warns against over-reliance on conventional negotiation frameworks. He criticizes the rigid, one-size-fits-all strategies often taught in business schools, noting that real-world negotiations are unpredictable and situational. For instance, he shares a story about dealing with a company that tried to fit every problem into predefined categories, expecting ready-made solutions to emerge. This approach failed because it ignored the human element, emotions, egos, and unique circumstances. McCormack's advice is to remain flexible and open to the nuances of each situation, rather than relying on formulas. One of the most insightful points McCormack makes about negotiation is the power of framing. He explains that how you present your position can significantly influence the other party's perception. In one negotiation involving television rights, McCormack framed his proposal not as a demand but as an opportunity for the other party to enhance their reputation. By aligning his goals with theirs, he created a sense of partnership rather than opposition, ultimately leading to a successful outcome. This approach demonstrates that negotiation isn't just about what you want, it's about how you position your goals to make them appealing to the other side. McCormack closes this section with a reminder that sales and negotiation are deeply personal processes. They require intuition, empathy, and the ability to connect with people on a human level. Whether you're closing a multimillion-dollar deal or persuading someone to take a small step in your direction, the principles remain the same. Listen more than you speak, observe carefully, and adapt to the situation. Above all, remember that success in sales and negotiation isn't about outsmarting the other person, it's about finding common ground and creating value for both sides. By weaving together real-world examples, practical strategies, and deep insights into human behavior, McCormack provides a roadmap for mastering sales and negotiation. His lessons remind us that the most effective tactics often involve subtlety, patience, and a genuine understanding of the people you're dealing with. These skills, while rarely taught in business schools, are essential for anyone looking to succeed in the competitive world of business. In the final section of his book, Mark McCormack turns his attention to the challenges and realities of running a business. This part is not a theoretical guide but a practical exploration of how to build, sustain, and grow a successful enterprise in the real world. McCormack shares insights from his own journey of creating and managing IMG, the world's first sports management company, offering advice grounded in his experiences of overcoming obstacles, navigating relationships, and keeping his business adaptable in an ever-changing landscape. McCormack begins with the importance of building a business. He shares how he started IMG in the early 1960s with less than $500 and a handshake agreement with Arnold Palmer. At the time, there was no established industry for sports management or marketing. What McCormack did was create an entirely new field by identifying an untapped opportunity leveraging athletes' marketability outside their performance arenas. This example underscores his belief that entrepreneurial success often comes from recognizing opportunities others overlook and having the courage to pursue them. Central to building a business, McCormack emphasizes, is the ability to establish and nurture relationships. He recounts the story of his initial attempts to represent tennis star Chris Evert. In 1975, when McCormack first approached her, she declined to sign with IMG. Instead of pushing too hard or severing ties, McCormack remained patient and supportive, staying in contact with Evert over the years. By 1980, when Evert felt the timing was right, she chose IMG to manage her career. This story highlights McCormack's philosophy that relationships are built on trust and mutual respect, and sometimes the best business decisions require patience. Sustaining a business, McCormack argues, is often more challenging than starting one. While enthusiasm and novelty drive the early days of entrepreneurship, staying competitive and relevant requires discipline, adaptability, and a constant willingness to innovate. McCormack uses IMG as an example, explaining how the company diversified from sports management into areas like television, fashion, and even classical music. By not relying solely on one market, IMG was able to weather economic shifts and remain a leader in multiple industries. This diversification was not random but strategic. Each new venture complemented IMG's existing strengths and positioned the company for long-term success. One of McCormack's key principles for staying in business is efficiency. He shares how early in his career, he once made a promise to deliver a document within a week, but failed to follow through. The delay damaged his credibility and taught him a valuable lesson. Always deliver on your commitments. Whether it's a small task or a major project, meeting deadlines and keeping promises are fundamental to building trust with clients, partners, and employees. McCormack advises entrepreneurs and business leaders to prioritize clarity in communication and to avoid overcommitting, as unmet expectations can undermine relationships. Managing people effectively is another cornerstone of running a business. McCormack explains that leadership is not about exerting authority but about understanding and motivating those who work for you. He shares anecdotes about dealing with employees who had strong egos but inconsistent performance. While strong egos can drive ambition and creativity, unchecked arrogance can harm a team's morale and productivity. McCormack suggests balancing individual ambitions with collective goals, ensuring that each team member feels valued while staying aligned with the company's mission. He also addresses the pitfalls of micromanagement. While it's essential for leaders to stay informed, constantly hovering over employees can stifle creativity and reduce efficiency. McCormack advises delegating responsibility while maintaining oversight, a balance that allows employees to grow while ensuring accountability. However, he warns against delegating too much without understanding the details yourself. He shares how, in IMG's early days, he personally handled everything from contract negotiations to event logistics, giving him a deep understanding of his business's inner workings. This hands-on experience allowed him to manage effectively as the company grew. For entrepreneurs, McCormack offers specific advice based on his own experiences. He acknowledges that entrepreneurship comes with unique challenges, including limited resources, high risk, and the need to juggle multiple roles. However, he sees these challenges as opportunities for growth. In the early days of IMG, McCormack often had to pitch clients, draft contracts, and manage logistics simultaneously. While this was exhausting, it gave him a comprehensive understanding of his business and helped him build a strong foundation for future growth. His advice to entrepreneurs is to embrace the hustle, as the lessons learned during these early stages are invaluable. Resilience, McCormack argues, is perhaps the most critical trait for entrepreneurs and business leaders. He shares how IMG faced setbacks over the years, from losing major clients to deals falling through at the last minute. Instead of dwelling on these failures, McCormack used them as learning experiences. For example, when a high-profile deal with a corporate sponsor fell apart due to miscommunication, McCormack restructured his approach to ensure clearer communication in future negotiations. He believes that setbacks are inevitable in business, but the ability to recover and adapt is what separates successful entrepreneurs from those who give up. Innovation is another recurring theme in this section. McCormack criticizes businesses that rely too heavily on conventional methods or resist change. He explains that one of the biggest challenges in business is overcoming inertia, the tendency to stick with what has worked in the past, even when it no longer suits current circumstances. McCormack recounts how some of IMG's competitors failed because they clung to outdated models while IMG continuously evolved. For instance, while others focused solely on representing athletes, IMG expanded into television production, licensing, and even fashion modeling, ensuring that the company stayed ahead of industry trends. The takeaway is clear: businesses that fail to innovate eventually fail altogether. McCormack also stresses the importance of focus. While innovation and diversification are essential, they must align with your core business goals. He warns against chasing every new opportunity without considering how it fits into your broader strategy. This disciplined approach helped IMG grow without losing sight of its core mission: managing talent and creating value for clients. Discipline extends to financial management as well. McCormack shares how he prioritized reinvesting profits into the business rather than indulging in unnecessary expenses. This financial prudence allowed IMG to scale sustainably and avoid overextending itself during periods of rapid growth. McCormack advises business leaders to adopt a long-term perspective, focusing on building a solid foundation rather than seeking quick wins. One of McCormack's final points is about getting things done. He explains that in the fast-paced world of business, execution often matters more than ideas. While creativity and strategy are important, they mean little if not followed by effective implementation. McCormack shares how he built a reputation for reliability by consistently delivering on his promises, whether it was finalizing a deal, meeting a deadline, or addressing a client's concerns. This focus on execution earned him the trust of clients and colleagues, reinforcing the importance of follow-through in business. Ultimately, McCormack concludes that running a business is as much about people as it is about products or services. Whether you're managing employees, negotiating with clients, or dealing with competitors, success depends on your ability to understand, motivate, and collaborate with others. He reminds readers that the skills required to run a business effectively, relationship building, adaptability, resilience, and innovation, are not taught in business schools. They are learned through experience, observation, and a willingness to embrace the realities of the real world. By sharing his own successes and failures, McCormack offers a candid and practical guide to running a business. His advice is not about following rigid rules, but about developing the intuition and flexibility needed to navigate the complexities of the business world. In the end, his message is clear. Success comes not from knowing all the answers, but from continually learning, adapting, and improving. This mindset, McCormack believes, is the key to building and sustaining a successful business in any industry. Mark McCormack's What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School is a masterclass in bridging the gap between academic theory and real-world practice. Through his extensive experiences in building and managing IMG, McCormack delivers timeless lessons that emphasize the human side of business. While business schools excel at teaching frameworks, models, and technical skills, McCormack argues that the true determinants of success are interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, and practical experience, qualities he collectively refers to as street smarts. The central theme of the book is that business revolves around people. Whether you're reading someone's behavior, creating the right impression, negotiating a deal, or running a business, understanding people is the cornerstone of success. McCormack's stories from dealing with Richard Nixon's phoniness to gaining the trust of Chris Evert after years of patience demonstrate that success often depends on subtle insights and the ability to adapt to the personalities, egos, and motivations of others. In the first section, McCormack highlights the importance of reading people. By observing not just what they say but how they say it, and paying attention to body language and unconscious cues, you can uncover valuable insights that others might miss. Business relationships often hinge on these subtleties. For instance, McCormack's ability to detect ego dynamics helped him tailor his approach to different personalities, whether dealing with a headstrong chairman or a nervous executive. His advice to listen aggressively and observe carefully isn't just a call to pay attention. It's a reminder to tune in to the layers of communication that go beyond words. Creating impressions is equally critical. McCormack demonstrates how the smallest gestures, like introducing yourself, being punctual, or tailoring a letter to someone's personal interests, can leave a lasting mark. He makes the case that impressions are built over time through consistent actions, and that even minor lapses in professionalism can undermine trust. Yet, he also emphasizes the power of playing against expectations, such as showing restraint in negotiations or surprising someone with humility when they expect aggression. These moments of unpredictability can be disarming, making others more receptive and open to collaboration. Sales and negotiation, covered in the second part, are presented as extensions of understanding people. McCormack dismantles the myth of the hard sell approach, instead advocating for strategies that prioritize timing, silence, and framing. His story about Pepsi's eventual partnership with Burger King illustrates how persistence must be paired with adaptability and genuine listening. Similarly, his use of silence in negotiations reveals how restraint can shift the dynamic, allowing the other party to fill the void and often give away critical information. McCormack's approach to negotiation is refreshingly human-focused, not on winning at all costs, but on creating mutually beneficial outcomes by understanding the other party's goals and motivations. The final section, focused on running a business, ties everything together. Building a business, McCormack explains, is not just about having a great idea, it's about execution, adaptability, and relationships. He draws from his own experience of founding IMG with minimal resources, showing how opportunities arise from seeing potential where others do not. Sustaining a business, however, requires discipline and the ability to innovate. McCormack warns against complacency, highlighting how IMG's diversification into areas like television and fashion ensured its long-term relevance. Leadership, in McCormack's view, is about balance, giving people autonomy while maintaining oversight, fostering ambition while curbing arrogance, and knowing when to step in versus when to step back. His advice for entrepreneurs is particularly resonant. Embrace the challenges of the early days. as these formative experiences provide the foundation for future growth. He acknowledges that setbacks are inevitable but insists that resilience and the ability to learn from failures are what ultimately determine success. One of the most striking aspects of McCormack's philosophy is his rejection of rigidity. While business schools teach structured frameworks, McCormack argues that real-world business is fluid and unpredictable. Success comes from adaptability, knowing when to challenge conventional wisdom, when to take risks, and when to pivot. His story about Japanese sports promoter Atsushi Fujita using cultural values to salvage a deal is a powerful reminder that flexibility and creativity are essential in navigating the complexities of the business world. Ultimately, McCormack's book is a celebration of the practical, often messy, reality of business. It reminds us that success doesn't come from following a formula but from understanding people, adapting to situations, and continuously learning. His stories, drawn from decades of experience, offer more than advice. They provide a blueprint for thinking critically, acting strategically, and thriving in a world where relationships are at the heart of every transaction. In the end, what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School is not just a guide to succeeding in business. It's a call to embrace the human element in every interaction. By mastering the art of reading people, creating lasting impressions, negotiating with empathy, and running a business with adaptability and resilience, McCormack argues that anyone can achieve extraordinary success even without an MBA. His lessons are as relevant today as they were when the book was first published, making this a must-read for anyone looking to excel in the world of business. And that wraps up our journey through What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School by Mark McCormack. It's a book filled with timeless wisdom that reminds us that business isn't just about strategies, numbers, or degrees. It's about people, instincts, and real-world experience. Whether it's learning to read people, creating powerful impressions, mastering the art of negotiation, or building and running a business, McCormack's insights prove that the most important lessons often come from the school of life, not the classroom. So, what was your biggest takeaway from today's video? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. And if you have a book you'd like me to cover next, drop your suggestions below. Thanks for watching, and remember, success isn't just about what you know, it's about how you apply it. See you in the next one.